Well, welcome back and welcome to the beginning of the Halloween season. Today we're diving deep into the shadows and secrets of New England with one of the leading explorers of the unexplained. He's a best-selling author, storyteller, and one of the most recognized voices in the world of paranormal. We've seen his work on television, heard him on countless radio shows, and read his words bringing ghosts, monsters, and mysteries to life. His brand new book, Wicked Strange, Your Guide to Ghost, Monsters, Oddities, and Urban Legends of New England. It's not just a travel guide, it's an initiative into a hidden world right under our noses. From haunted lighthouses and cursed hotels to sea serpents, vampires, and even UFO crashes. Jeff takes us off the beaten path, and he reveals why New England remains one of the strangest and most fascinating regions on Earth. Well, get ready to uncover the eerie tales, meet eccentric locals, and even find out where we can experience these legends for yourself. It's spooky, it's weird, it's wicked fun. And guess what? I am Tony Sweet with Truth Be Told. And please welcome back to the Truth Be Told studios, the one and only Jeff Belanger. All right, Jeff, it's only about your 15th time on Truth Be Told. Every time you're here, you probably have a new book, and so I don't know how you don't have like Fred Sanford's arthritis from writing so much, or typing so much. But congrats on the new book.
Once in a while, they get lucky, and we just put it out. So
Right. Well,
I can't take all the credit.
Exploiting those monkeys, damn it, you.
I know.
Well, first of all, I don't know where you constantly get your inspiration to write all these different books and TV shows and do the things you do on your podcast. So let's jump right in and ask what inspired you to write the Wicked Strange. But I have to say, I do love it that it's kind of like this travel guide for people that don't get to, because, everybody goes to different cities and they're like, all right, let's go to the Empire State Building and this and that. But we don't hear about the oddities and the monsters and the ghosts that are in surrounding areas. So what inspired you?
Yeah, so the book was born first from the New England Legends television series that I started on PBS back in 2013.
Wow.
We didn't get any money for that. We literally funded it ourselves, and it's, as you know, it's very expensive and time consuming to make a TV episode. And expensive, because again, I can't stress enough, we got no money. And that's not hyperbole. I mean, literally zero.
So let's go GoFundMe to Jeff. No, just kidding.
No, it's okay. I don't need a handout anymore. But from there, I was like, man, I love these stories. There's so many more we could do. And so I started the New England Legends podcast back in 2017. And they're short scripted stories, right? We script them. Like, how did we get to right now? How did we get to talking about this building being haunted, or this being a UFO hotspot, or this roadside oddity, or this eccentric person leaving a very strange mark behind? And then we'd sort of unfold the story. And also, simultaneously, for the last 10 years, 12 years actually, my photographer buddy and I, Frank Grace, he and I have been producing a Haunted New England calendar where he takes such great pictures. There's one right behind you right now.
Where?
You're in the Mark Twain house, I can tell. In Hartford, Connecticut. So Frank takes these amazing photos. And so we partnered up to do this annual calendar. And every year we would change the months, change the stories. And I was like, man, Frank, we got to do a book. I have all these stories from the podcast, which are crowdsourced at this point. The audience writes in and says, oh, in my town, we've got this strange little tale. And
That's
those
amazing.
are my favorite. Not the one, I mean, the ones everybody knows. I call it like playing the hits. Those are great.
Right.
But I like the deep cuts on the album too. And so that really inspired us, and we said, all right, let's do a book. His photos, my stories, culled from really the last 12, 13 years of work, and that's what sort of brought this all together. And when you're talking about these strange places, writing can take you so far, photos can take you so far. I mean, and putting them together was just kind of natural.
Now, did you both go at the same time to these locations to take pictures and you get the sense of what's kind of going on, or did you kind of rely on the people, the locals, to send you the information and you did the research?
So sometimes the email was as much as like, hey, there's these strange petroglyphs in my town. You should check them out. Yeah. Like that was it. That's all I had to go on. And so then you start digging in, and I would do all the research. Frank and I went together to lots of them because we've taken a lot of road trips over the
Right.
years. Um, uh, but some, it was such a great story, he had to go get the photo. In other cases, he took such a great photo, I had to do the story. Mostly the story dictated the photo, but there were a few occasions. So, for example, we were doing this road trip through Maine, and we were going through this tiny little town, and there was a giant old-fashioned phone, with the thing hanging and the
Mm-hmm.
crank on the side. Giant. I mean, I don't know, it's 12 feet tall and huge. And I'm just like, I don't know, pull over. We should photograph that. I have no idea what's going on here, but let's just photograph it. So we were there like all of 5 minutes. We photographed it and left and sort of forgot about it. And then later on, I learned that tiny little town in Maine was the site of the very last crank phone call in America.
The last cranked phone call.
The last cranked phone
Cranked.
call in America. And the year is way later than you would ever guess. It was like 1980.
Oh.
And they were the last ones to sort of hold on to this old phone system,
Hmm.
literally party line. You could pick up and hear your
I
neighbors
remember
on
the
it and
party
everything.
lines when I was a kid.
Yeah, but it was really party line. There could be 20 of you listening, and I was like, how great is that? And so they put it up as a monument, saying we were the last to go down swinging with
Oh,
these
how
old-fashioned phones.
funny.
You're on to touch tones and wireless phones, and then cell phones, and they were still cranking phones in Maine. I love that.
I miss those days. No, I was kidding.
Right? Yeah. Is your refrigerator running? You can't do
Right,
it. Everybody's
right.
got caller ID. Doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure I am a little older than you. I don't. You probably didn't remember the crank phone calls. Well, actually,
Heck yeah, I do. I'm 51.
oh, I guess. Wow, you look good. Wow, I'm
It's all these
78. No, I'm
chasing
just
weird
kidding.
things. Yeah. No, I do. I remember is your refrigerator running and calling the bowling alley? That had its own little joke.
Yeah, and Mike. No, that's a different one. Sorry, that's Porky's.
Right.
So let's move on from that.
I know that one though. I know it, but we won't say it because it's
Yeah, I won't say the
not
rest
family
of it.
friendly.
So, so some of these sites that you went to, did either of you kind of get an unsettled feeling? Because I know a lot of people go to these locations. Some people are a little more sensitive to, maybe their psychic abilities are a little more than some other people. But were you or Frank? Is that his name?
Frank, yeah, Frank Grace.
Did you ever walk into a place and really get an unsettled feeling? And where was that?
Rarely, but there was one in particular. There's this ancient site in Connecticut called Gunjiwamp. And what makes it so interesting is that there's a bunch of stone ruins up on this hill. And there's a colonial foundation. We know who lived there. It was a colonial house. But there's also monument stones that go back to Native American times, long before that, and stone structures that look like it could have been like a root cellar, even post-colonial.
Right.
So there's I mean, a couple thousand years of historic markers up there. And we knew where it was. We knew where to park. And then you take this trail, maybe half a mile, three-quarters of a mile into the woods. And we started walking down the trail like any other, no big deal. We've been in the woods plenty. We go by a swamp, no big deal. But then, just as you take the hill that just gets you up to this Gunjiwamp site, there's this tree line, a distinct tree line. And as soon as we crossed over it, we both got silent. And I looked at him after, 10 steps in, and I just went, man, it feels different here. Different here compared to 10 feet ago. I don't mean back at the car. I mean,
Wow.
we could just go back 10 feet. And he's like, yeah, it is weird. And then you come up around the corner, and there's all the stone monuments. And there's a stone circle. There's this one stone hut that's got a tiny window. It's mostly built into a hill. And when the sun, it's either like the sunset or the sunrise, hits that stone and a cornerstone, it marks the solstice.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so someone built this with a lot of intention, and it's a tiny little room. I mean, it's smaller than my office. It's this tiny little stone hut. Not good for much, not good for shelter or anything like that. And you go, why did they need to know the solstice? I mean, I assume attached to farming or something like that,
Right.
but a very mysterious site, and we both got the same feeling. And then when we left, when we
But what
walked
was the
past the tree
feeling?
line, it was okay.
But what was the feeling? Was it a fear? Was it just overwhelming? Was it a anxiety?
I think the best description would be we were trespassing. Now we weren't.
Get the hell out of here.
But it felt like we were sneaking onto someone's property. We shouldn't be there, and if we get caught, we're going to be in trouble. That was not the case, but that's what it felt like. It felt like someone we shouldn't be here. We're not allowed to be here,
Right.
and someone could be watching for us.
So what was the background of that?
So,
They don't
so
know?
well, there's petroglyphs on some of these old
Right.
standing stones, so we know it was a somewhat of a sacred site. And the thing about Native Americans in New England is they didn't mess with the stones too much, even though it is an abundant resource. I promise. We've got rocks everywhere. They didn't really mess with them on the whole. They built structures that could be taken down and moved. Yet there's these carvings on these rocks, and no one really understands what they were for. There's a stone circle. Some suggest that was used for tanning leather. Maybe, maybe
Hmm.
that's the case, or maybe it was something. I mean, when you go up there, Tony, it's like right out of Pet Cemetery. I
Oh my
mean,
God.
it's
The
on top of
original.
a hill, lots of trees now, but at the same time, there's these weird stone circles. The
Wow.
foundation we know was just a colonist. Someone had a little house there, and then the house is gone, but the foundation remains. That's pretty straightforward. And then that stone hut with the window that marks the solstice, we don't know. And that's what's so strange about this site is that it's been left alone. Nobody ever came in and destroyed it. It's just left as it was for many centuries. And now you can go and explore it for yourself.
That's pretty amazing that it's kind of untouched, where I have to say America, in a lot of ways, people like to tear things down, build new. So I'm impressed that did not get touched at all.
Yeah, it's conservation land, and so they've left it.
Oh, that's
And
good. That's good.
there's an interpretive center that's not too far away. They can tell you about it, but there's just not much that's known. But I love that, and this speaks to New England in general. We tend to preserve history. We tend
Yeah.
to like if you go to that site, I can't imagine anyone saying, "Yeah, let's tear this down and put in another Dunkin' Donuts."
Right, right.
I think we just understand for reasons we can't fully explain. We're going to leave that alone. We're going to leave it as it is.
Do you think that's why New England has such fertile ground for all these hauntings and legends and stuff because of the preservation of history?
It's absolutely part of our culture. I grew up in
Yeah.
small towns where if you owned a house on Main Street and you wanted to paint it, you have to ask the town's permission if you want to
Really?
change the color. Because
Huh.
there's such an effort, and you understand that when you buy it, by the way, they don't pull that on you.
Right.
There's such an effort to preserve our towns. In my town,
I
they were
love
so
that.
meticulous about painting our town hall this particular shade of yellow. They found some very old boards and they said this was the original color. We now have to make
Hmm.
it that original color. And they went through a lot of effort just to paint a building. And it's a beautiful old town hall. It was a meeting house and everything
Right.
else. But that's our way. We preserve. And we also hibernate. We get some pretty cold winters. So I think
I'm sure.
that combination, we've got these puritanical sensibilities, and yet we're storytellers and we preserve. So when you drive down our main streets, that's what it looked like 150 years ago.
I
And
love that though.
you understand, right? And also we're matter of fact. Oh, that house is haunted. That one isn't. Let's not argue about it. It's not a big deal. And it's just okay, good enough. That one's haunted.
How did you, and I'm sure you did, encounter many stories that were haunting, that were titled hauntings, but you went in and found out it was more community folklore. And
Oh,
how did you determine yourself which was which? Because I've heard that, oh, that house is haunted, but you walk in and you're like, I don't feel anything at all. So how did you determine what was what?
yeah. So the book, first of all, we don't just cover hauntings. We've got UFO sites, we've got
I
roadside
love
oddities,
it.
we've got eccentrics. A little bit of all the weirdness,
Mm-hmm.
the fringe stuff. So sometimes, a legend is just
Just as
that,
yeah.
and all we can do is sort of take a snapshot of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't explain it. Now, as well as I do, if a building has a haunted reputation and you go in there one night, uh, it doesn't, and you don't experience anything, it doesn't mean it's not
Right.
haunted. It means nothing happened
It's
that
on
night.
vacation.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's always boggling to me when someone's like, "Yeah, I went in for 5 minutes. I didn't see anything." I'm
Right,
like, "Oh, well,
right.
could have been the wrong 5 minutes."
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes, but for me, I still wonder why are we keeping these stories around? Because that's how I find out about them. I only find out about them because the community keeps them around, keeps talking
Hmm.
about them, And there's enough truth in it that people tell and retell the story. And then when you go there to experience it, you become part of the story, which is the most egocentric thing all of us can do. Like we're like, you know what? They say that's haunted, or they say there's a monster in that lake. I'm going swimming. I'm going to go look for it.
I would too.
Yeah, right. That's how we're cut, right? That's the tree we fell out of. So yeah, so we go and we look at the lake and we go to the cemetery and we knock on the cursed headstone 3 times at midnight like you're supposed to. And we wait and maybe the witch jumps out. Maybe she doesn't. But that doesn't mean something didn't scare the hell out of someone somewhere along the way.
Well, we talked about, having the overwhelming feeling once you walked into this one location. Was there one that was actually more just fun that you just really was looking forward to seeing because it just seemed like it would be really entertaining or just a hoot?
You've heard of Stonehenge?
Of course I have.
Yeah, of course. I've been there. It's an incredible, mysterious place. There's a place in New Hampshire called America's Stonehenge.
Ooh.
Not nearly as big, but there's these alignment stones around, and they call it America's Stonehenge because it seems to be an ancient astronomical calendar. However, the henge I would like to tell you about is in Massachusetts, and it's called Ponyhenge.
Ponyhenge?
It dates all the way back to the year 2000.
Oh, wait a minute. I have to look this up.
Okay.
Oh
so
my God.
Ponyhenge, something happened. There's a farmer who owns some land right by this road in Massachusetts. And one day, the child's rocking horses with the old springs?
Uh-huh.
When we were kids, we got our fingers caught in the springs and it would hurt like hell, remember?
Mm-hmm.
Someone dropped off a couple of those and the farmer just went, "That's odd." And instead of throwing them away, he just kind of arranged them. And then 2 became 5. And then 5 became 10, and people just kept dropping them off. Some people would steal them, but more kept arriving. And the farmer would arrange them in different patterns. Sometimes he had to move them all to cut the grass, and then he would put them back. And now it's called Ponyhenge, and people stop by every day to just take pictures of this weird roadside oddity that was born for reasons we'll never understand. But something happened. Someone did a thing and left these old rocking horses, and someone else left another one and another one and another one, and you're free to do so today. You can drop off your own. There it is. Tell me that's not the most fun you could have on like an outing. America's Stonehenge, and now I've been to Ponyhenge.
That's funny. So yeah, how did you, because I'm sure you received so many different people suggesting, did you pick like a top 10, a top 20? How did you pick these locations? Because I'm sure you could write probably 4,000 or 5,000 books about what's not just in New England alone.
Yeah. So part of the challenge, we knew we wanted stories from each of the 6 New England states. We wanted to be fair, so the same number of stories from each of the 6 New England states. And then also, you can't just have like all haunts in Maine and all cemeteries in Connecticut. So we wanted to make sure we had a UFO story in each of the 6 states. We had a couple cemetery safaris in each of the 6 states, haunts in each of the 6 states. So that was the challenge and they had to be visually interesting because, some stories, there's nothing left to see. I could take you, there's literally it's not in the book, but there's this haunted Cumberland Farms, which is a popular gas station / convenience store out this way. Cumbies, we call it. And they call it haunted because it's only like 5-6 years old. But before that, there was this restaurant that was famously haunted right on those grounds. And everybody knew it was one of the most famous New England haunts. They took it down, and now it's a Cumberland Farm. So you're gassing up, you're getting a pack of gum or like an iced tea or something. And if you know what was there before, this rich story. I didn't think, as good of a photographer as Frank is, a picture of a gas station convenience store just doesn't seem interesting.
Right.
So, it's not in the book.
Here at 7-Eleven. No,
exactly. That's what it looks like. Just like that. Yeah.
Well, speaking of UFOs, because, we talk a lot about ghosts and UFOs here on Truth Be Told. I want to talk about, because I know you like Barney or Betty and Barney Hill, and the Baton Lake crash. That one I have not heard about. Can you talk about some of these UFO stories that you chose?
Sure. The Bantam Lake crash was in Morris, Connecticut. And it was not all that long ago, but it was so well documented by various witnesses, including state police and locals. What they described was, forgive me, I don't have the date in front of me, but what they described was they saw this glowing green light in the sky late at night, and it came down right in the area of Bantam Lake, which is the largest lake around that part of Connecticut for many miles. And a state police officer reported it too. In fact, they alerted the FAA and said, "Did you have anything, happening that night?" This was 2012, by the way. I just found it. April 10th, 2012. So not all that long ago. They call 911's getting phone calls because people around the lake are seeing it, and the FAA is alerted. We think there could be a plane crash. So the FAA verifies we had nothing on the radar, nothing in the area, no one filed any flight plans. State police officers saw it fall, like in the vicinity of the lake, said it was the size of a whale, glowing green, and then fell, just past the tree line into the lake. The next day, a search and rescue comes out looking for anything. They're dragging the lake. Is there a plane down there? Is there something that entered the water? They took it seriously. Everybody took it as if something from the sky had fallen into that water, and they found nothing. And yet it was witnessed by so many people. And it's just become this spot now. And that's part of Connecticut is sort of on the northeasternish side. There's not a lot of population around it. There's enough. But it's one of those stories that because it was called into the police actually witnessed it, and search and rescue got involved. We're still talking about it.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I've not, for some reason, I've heard of many, but that's one I have not heard about. Did they ever find anything in the lake at all? Nothing.
They found absolutely nothing. Plus, some said, well, it was a meteor. Well, if a meteor the size of a whale hit that lake, there would be no more Connecticut.
Right. At least no more lake.
Yeah, no, I mean, that would leave a mark. I mean, we're talking something that size would have blown away an entire town, at least minimum, if it was like a meteor. But space junk, they found nothing. They looked and looked.
They're going to say, because off of Malibu, they say there's a underwater, like, what do you call I can't even think of it. Underwater.
Yeah, the underwater kind of UFO.
Yes.
The base.
Base. There we go.
Yeah.
The easy word, base.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe there's some underwater base under there. Who knows? That's pretty cool, though.
So it is cool. And there's, sometimes there's stories we all know, like Betty and Barney Hill, you mentioned in New Hampshire. However, in working on one episode of my podcast, there was a Cold War era satellite station in Vermont, and they reported a UFO the same night as the Betty and Barney Hill incident. They had this. So it was really cool. I mean, they absolutely must be connected. I'm certain they saw the same thing.
That's pretty coincidental.
Because you're talking about, I don't know, 100 miles between this base and where Betty and Barney Hill had their experience. And it was, about an hour apart. 100 miles in an hour in an aircraft is nothing. Like, that's a very short distance to cover. So you had this Cold War era base go on high alert. They saw something on radar, and they were watching for nukes from Russia. That's the job.
Right.
But they have this one thing. They go outside with binoculars. They see the weird lights. They don't know what it is, but they're pretty sure it's not a missile. And then it's gone. It moves over the horizon, and they just shrug and say, well, not a missile, so I guess we just go back to watching. And then, an hour later, Betty and Barney Hill had their experience. And that's really, I didn't hear too many people cover that part of the story.
No, not at all.
There was something that happened just a little bit before.
Yeah, that's definitely not a coincidence, I don't think. I feel that once a few sightings nearby, and then there's something like a big event like an abduction, and two people experienced it, it's probably part of the story.
and that was so cool. Frank's a UFO nerd hardcore. I mean, I love it too, but Frank even more. And he got to go up to, I think the University of New Hampshire, I believe, has a lot of the artifacts. he got to take out the dress. We photographed the dress. You can see it in the book. He photographed it. I didn't do it. I don't even know which end of the camera works.
Jeff just tried it on. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I tried it. It didn't fit, but I tried.
Okay.
So he got to look at all the files, the bust of the artist rendition of what they claim they saw. And it's so cool to get into the story. But my favorite part is you can see the historic marker on the side of Route 3. And whether you believe in UFOs or not, that is a state historic marker. It's really nice. It's made of metal, cast iron. It's hand painted, and taxpayers paid for it.
Oh,
just let that sink in.
Wow.
That's taxpayer dollars that pay for that sign that so many people pull over and take pictures next to, and put their stickers on it and everything else. I love that.
I do too. No, I love it. And one good shot that Frank did, and I think, and I have this thing for lighthouses, as you can see in my. For the people that are listening, I'm showing a picture of myself, but a lighthouse in the background. Can you talk about? And I'm terrible.
Is that Lordship?
I'm sorry.
Is that the Lordship Lighthouse?
Yes.
Okay, in Connecticut. Yes. So that's that light. First of all, so many lighthouses have a haunted reputation. That one is not one of them.
Really?
One, not necessarily haunted, but the lighthouse keeper is pretty well documented as claiming he saw a mermaid.
Oh,
right
wow.
behind that lighthouse. We have other haunted lighthouse stories, but this one's a mermaid story. Yeah, he was in the papers for claiming he saw it. The lighthouse keeper had worked there for decades and claimed he saw this mermaid. It's Stratford, Connecticut, which is on Long Island Sound, pretty close to Bridgeport, if you're familiar with the coast.
Yeah, yeah.
And Theodore Judson was the lighthouse keeper from 1880 to 1920. So he was there for a good long time. And he claims he saw it plainly. He went out. He was quoted in the paper. We quote him in the book. He said it was a woman with beautiful hair, and she was brushing her hair. And he claims, ready for this? This is the best part. He says he tried to grab her because no one would believe him, and she whacked him in the head. He got a little cut on his head, and she got away. But he had the hairbrush, and he said he could show people the hairbrush. And when people pointed out that looks like any hairbrush I've ever seen ever. He explained mermaids get their hairbrushes by going to the staterooms of sunken ships and pulling it out. So, of course, it looks like any hairbrush you've ever seen.
That's a good answer.
This is one of those stories, Tony, where you got to go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And in his defense, many lighthouses are completely isolated on a tiny little island and you're stuck. This is not one of them. This is on the mainland. So you can't say he's stir crazy. He could actually just, walk into town if he wanted to. But still, that's his story. He's sticking to it. It was in the papers, and to this day, people still look for the Lordship mermaid.
That's pretty cool. I have to say, mermaid, and with Ariel and all that stuff, we can, AKA Ariel. Was he a drunk? was he a known drunk? Because it sounds like he may have a little tipsy, or no.
No, they didn't claim he was a drunk, but on another occasion, he did claim he also saw a sea serpent right off the coast. So take that for what you will. Sea serpents and mermaids right there off the coast of Stratford, Connecticut.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Well, you mentioned that legends, preserve a town's unique identity, and
sure.
And how do you see some of these towns holding on to these legends? Like we talked about that, is it more for just being something fun to talk about, or do you think some of these people really take some of these legends seriously?
Oh no, people do take them seriously. It depends on the story, of course.
Yeah.
It's I think about a town like Salem, which is Salem, Massachusetts. I remember I've covered so many stories there over the years,
sure.
And I only live an hour away. Salem, of course, is famous or infamous for its 1692 witch trials that were so well documented that we know everything about them. And then Arthur Miller wrote The Crucible, which was really a very pop culture rehash of this thing that happened. He was using it for a metaphor for McCarthyism, but also there's witch hunts in like your PTA meetings and in your town board meetings and your neighborhood associations and in politics and so on and on and on. So we know the story so well. And all kinds of people flock there for the weird. There's witchy shops. The police cars have a witch riding a broom on their official logo. And I remember interviewing a local, and there's two different monuments in town for the people who were killed in the trials. And he said, would you put Disneyland up in Auschwitz?
Oh God, no, you're
No, but he
right.
has a
No.
point, right? You're like,
Yeah,
no,
no,
of
it's
course
true.
not. And he said, so why do we do it here? Why do we have this like festive celebration? People were murdered,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
bunch of them were murdered right here. And he's like, I don't like it. I don't like that we have this. And yet it is such a huge industry in Salem. Salem has become the mecca for witches, a central point for anybody who's into weird stuff. Even the Bewitched has a monument in town.
right,
The
right.
Bewitched show has a monument. So I understand how it grapples with its own identity. On the one hand, you're like, no,
Yeah,
we want to be known as this community that's about them, just a historic community. At one
right.
point, a bigger port than Boston. I mean, there was a time where that was a larger port. Um, we want to be known for that, not this. Yet they also understand you can't pick and choose, and 200,000 tourists come in every October and buy
Good for
pizza
the
and stay in the
economy.
hotels and eat in the restaurants um, and do all the touristy things. It is such a community with a split identity, and that's one where you can understand it, but you can also see it and the dichotomy of it just as you walk down the street.
I mean, I guess that could be true. I mean, I've been to Roswell where the street lamps are, shaped like aliens, and they have a, you know, alien museum. And I mean, I find that fascinating. I find it fun, and they even have a parade. But I can't see where a community where they John Wayne Gacy Day, you know,
Right,
yeah.
right.
I guess it's a pick and choose of what's more would be more offensive to people, I guess.
You're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's dive into the monsters and creatures, because I know, ghosts are great, UFOs are great, but there's a lot of different types of cryptozoology creatures out there, like Champ and the Cumberland vampire. Can you talk about a few of those? And
Sure.
do you
Yeah,
see?
yeah.
Yeah, because there's tons out there too, I'm sure, on the East Coast, on the in New England.
Yeah, no, we have no shortage
You know.
of of strange creatures. So Champ is probably my favorite, and the reason is that he's so well documented. So Champ is the lake monster of Lake Champlain, and Lake Champlain is massive.
It's
It
huge, yeah.
borders Vermont, New York, and then to the north it's in Canada. So like a third of it is up in Canada. And the thing about Champ is that, I mean, the sightings go back centuries. When Samuel D. Champlain, who it's
Hmm.
Champlain's named after, he heard the stories. He had documented, talking about giant serpents 100 feet long plus in this lake. And he said he heard from the natives that that it's always been there. They called it a sea serpent, but obviously it's not an ocean, it's a lake. So the stories go far, far back. However, the modern day sightings are so numerous. On the New York side, there's a big sign where I mean, there must be dozens of names where it would say like Tony Sweet and then the date of your sighting.
Hmm.
And so people are
Oh,
literally
wow.
just going on record saying, this is my name, I had a sighting. And it's the newspapers filled with accounts of this. I got to talk to someone who grew up with a little campsite right on the lake and on the Vermont side. And he said, he was there actually photographing their campsite, and he had just taken his last picture of the campsite, and he's out of film. And he turns around, and there's the lake, and he sees this thing moving, kind of swaying back and forth, coming toward the shore.
Oh, wow.
And then it reared its head, and he described it like a horse's head, which is what all the descriptions are: a horse's head, but without the ears. And it sort of came up, but then a boat started coming up the lake, a motorboat. And once the motorboat came, it submerged again and it was gone.
Wow.
But he said this thing had to be at least 80 feet long because of its wake and the way it sort of swayed in the water. And then it went under, and him and his dad saw it, and he said, and it killed me. I had no film. This was back before cell phones,
Right.
But he said, I had no film, but I saw it. Now, he has been photographed by other people. You can go online and Google, Champ photos, and you'll see it. And that's a community, especially Burlington, which is a fun, weird town right on the lake in Vermont. they've embraced Champ to the point where you can buy a T-shirt, a plush toy. There's signs sponsored by the Vermont State Lottery, which also means taxpayers paid for it. And then their professional minor league baseball team is called the Lake Monsters.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah,
Wow.
got our
That's
picture
cool.
taken with Champ. So
At first, when you say champ, I thought it was a boxer, but in fact, now I remember not only Loch Ness, but I believe, if I remember right, I could be wrong, In Search of with Leonard Nimoy. I think he may have talked about it. I'm not for sure, but I'm sure I've seen it many times throughout the years.
So I mean, I know I'm biased, but I truly believe there's far more sightings of Champ than Loch Ness.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about Loch Ness in years.
They still come up. They still make the paper. You
Yeah.
know, so and so says they saw it, and the story continues.
All right, we have to talk about, because Halloween's coming up, the Cumberland Vampire.
Oh yeah.
It's like what I've heard about it, but I don't know much about it.
So vampires were pretty common in New England. There were many. The Cumberland Vampire is just one of probably like a dozen that I've looked into over the
Really?
years. Oh yeah. So before Dracula, before Nosferatu, before all that stuff, the vampires were considered kind of like walking corpses, and they fed on the lifeblood, literally the blood and the vitality of the living. And during times of tuberculosis, which is an absolutely massive killer, tuberculosis has taken 1 billion lives between the years 1800 and 2000. Still a huge global killer. It's just mostly under control of this in this country, thanks to vaccines and
Right.
everything else. So, so there was a time when if you got tuberculosis, it could kill you in like a couple weeks. It could kill you in a few months. Some took years, and some people sort of lived with it the rest of their lives. And even though people understood contagion, you know, it's still people couldn't get their head around it. How come my whole family has been wiped out by this illness, and the house next door or down the street is fine? We go to church, they don't. Why? How come? You know, why, is God angry at me or punishing me and not and rewarding them? You know, people when they're scared, they start looking for answers. Medical science tells you it's a bacteria. It gets in your lungs, it eats you away from the inside, and your clergy says it's God's will, just pray. And for a lot of people, that just wasn't good enough.
Right.
But folklore always has an answer. You might be the victim of a vampire. And if you can find the vampire and stop it, then you might be able to break the spell. So the Cumberland Vampire is interesting because we know a little bit about it because the father of the girl who was buried went to the town council and said, I want permission to dig up my daughter's grave
Oh.
because my other daughter is now sick with consumption, and I suspect my daughter might be the vampire. And if we dig her up and we can verify she's the vampire, I'm going to attempt to break the spell, which could be cutting her head off or pulling out her heart, disrupting her, turning her head upside down, you know, whatever it is that could disrupt the vampire, and then I'll rebury her. And he got permission from the town to do this
Wow.
because he's desperate, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
when COVID hit, we did a lot of stories about vampires because we're just like, hey, it turns out when you're really scared about this invisible illness that's killing some people and could kill you and your loved ones, we don't always act rationally.
What?
I know. And you know, you want to go back to Cumberland and say, did you even try hoarding toilet paper? Because did you even give that a whirl before you started digging up dead bodies?
Right.
But anyone who's a parent, I think, sort of understands if someone says, hey, there's a 1 in a million shot this will work. Your other daughter's already dead, but if she's the vampire, we can prove it. You know, we can look for signs that she hasn't decomposed, that she's moved, her body's moved in her casket, and she's getting up to feed on her sister, because that's what they do. And the crazy thing is, this remedy, this folkloric remedy, did work on occasion. Skeptics will say that person was going to get better anyway, and destroying, burning a body or tearing its heart out had no effect other than maybe placebo. Maybe they're right. Or maybe you got lucky and you found the right vampire. And that's the story. I've got a vampire story. I think we found him in all 6 states except Maine. So
Really?
this was a thing. This was
No
happening.
Maine, huh?
No,
Too cold?
maniacs, we call them. I think they're, they left it alone.
Well, I know our time is getting limited, and I know there's so many stories that we can keep talking about, but I want people to actually get the book and read it. But what advice would you give your readers to who want to, respectively explore these places themselves? What would you give them as they take this journey? Because some people may pick up the book and says, "I'm going to every single site."
And the good news is every single site is accessible. That was another criteria. We wanted to make sure it wasn't private or anything like that. You are allowed to go to every one of these.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that was part of the plan. And you should go to every one of them, and you should ask your own questions. That's the thing. The story sticks around. I think one of my favorite tropes when it comes to haunts, especially, is the unfinished business idea, right? I believe that to my core, but I think we're thinking of it the wrong way. I don't think the ghost has unfinished business. I think we, the living, have unfinished business, so we keep it around. We keep talking about these stories because we haven't quite reconciled the answer yet. So if there was an unsolved murder, that still haunts us. We don't like it because we know it could happen again. If there's reports of a monster in the woods, we say, wait a minute, we are the smartest creatures on earth. We should know every creature that lurks the earth with us. We must know it. We must be that smart. Impossible. So it bothers us because we go, is it possible we missed something? Of course we did. Our oceans are filled with life that we have yet to discover. So these are the big questions. And when you go, you get to talk about this stuff. And if you want to take it as just a story, you can keep it at arm's length. That's fine. But that story still has value, and it still connects us with a community. It connects us with our past, and that helps us understand who we are now in the present, because we're all a product of where we grew up, where we live, and who raised us within that community. And the way we treat these weird stories is in our DNA.
I agree with you. I think, as we keep exploring this amazing world that we live on, constantly new discoveries of ancient civilizations and human remains that are 10, 20, 30,000 years old in a Arctic ice. And I just find it fascinating that even just recently, I think they had a rare sighting of a gorilla that they thought was maybe extinct. So, I think this is why humans are constantly excited about the unknown, and people like you that actually go out and bring these stories to us through books or podcast, and I find it fascinating and appreciate that you do stuff like that. So
Thank you.
And every time you come, you always impress. I don't know where you're 51 years old and you still have energy of a teenager. I don't know how you do it.
I guess because I don't have a real job, maybe that helps a lot. But Tony, thank you. Thanks for giving people like me a voice. I appreciate it. I think my favorite part of this is the discussion, because I don't know the answers. I can just tell you, like I said, these are literally snapshots. Sometimes literally you see the photograph, but also it's the story as I know it to be right now. It's going to change. I know that. If we go back in 10 years or 20 years, it's going to evolve, maybe a little bit, maybe a lot. But this is where it's at today. And that's what legends do. They live, they breathe, they grow, they move, they can marry, and they can die. But they only die when we stop talking about them, when we fully reconciled whatever thing we were processing about that legend. But it's such a wonderful way to connect with people in a time when we really need to connect. We're like, let's not talk about politics or sports or stuff that's going to make us fight. Let's talk about weird things and go, why did someone put a bunch of ponies on the side of the road?
That's true.
And then leave them there. And you can have a good laugh over it and say, remember being a kid and riding those things? Sure do. And then next thing you know, like, we connected a little bit.
Yeah. I drive in here in California where I live. I'll be driving down the road and I'm like, that's odd. I turn off and go to look at it. I mean, that's the first thing I do.
Yeah.
And you're like, why would they do this? But it's fun to look at. So, well, everybody that's listening or watching Wicked Strange, your guide to ghosts, monsters, oddities, and urban legends from New England. Do you see yourself doing Wicked Strange 2? And that actually sounds like a movie.
Wicked Strange too. Yeah, starring Tanya Katane. I think if we can get her, she might be available. Yeah, that's for the old people.
I know, right?
That one's dated. For sure. This is only a couple days old. Our podcast alone has covered over 400 different stories,
Wow.
and there's a little over 100 in this book. So, yeah, there could easily be a volume 2 and 3 and 4 and 5,
yeah.
and yeah, I guess time will tell. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll go New England, one state over. That'll be the next one.
We'll bleed out to like New York and down to Pennsylvania.
Right,
For
right.
sure.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much. You again, it's always a pleasure. You're launching the holiday season for us for Halloween, so we appreciate you being here and bringing us the amazing book, Wicked Strange. And tell us your podcast name again.
It's called New England Legends. You can get it for free wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, and please support Jeff and his endeavors. Go to jeffbelanger.com, and you can watch us here every Friday on YouTube channel. Please subscribe, follow, share, and give us suggestions. Like Jeff's got to go hear from the community, and we'd love to hear from you on who do you want us to have on. So, but until next time, take care of yourself and each other, and I really appreciate you guys. Take care.